Pastor Diane from Norfolk Wesleyan Church.
And I'm Pastor Peggy from Slave Lake Wesleyan Church. Welcome to Warm Hearted Wednesday. Yay! I love Warm Hearted Wednesday. I'm extremely excited about today's show because it's all about, anxieties and different things that we could be feeling, our emotions. And it's so important to have some input on that and to have somebody who is a professional be able to speak into it. So I'm really excited about today. But before we start, Pastor Diane, I know we didn't cover this last week, but part of mental health is probably, understanding why we actually do this show and understanding why we film it or air it at 12:30 Central Time.
Well, sure it is. When we started this, we were trying to figure out a time, and I was also thinking, why are we doing this? We're doing this because, first of all, we love God, but we love others as well. And I was reminded of the scripture in the Gospel of Mark where the Pharisees asked Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? And he replies in chapter 12, verse 30, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. So we took those numbers, 12:30, and thought, we need to keep God central. So that's why we do this show at 12:30 Central, because of Mark 12:30 telling us to love God with all we have. And we always talk about that on Warm Hearted Wednesday because there's more to the story. He continues and he says the second greatest commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. And our Warm Hearted Wednesday started out about us telling stories of how people loved each other. And it's interesting that today we're going to be talking about just emotional stuff and self-care, and that's loving ourselves, isn't it?
It sure is. And I'm really excited for our guest.
Really?
So, yeah, I know you're probably like, seriously? But
we have to talk to her? Okay, can I just say, last week on Friday, we had my niece. My niece is brilliant. I just love her. If you know me, ask me about the microwave story in Vicky. But other than that, amazingly intelligent. And today, we're going to be talking to her mother, who tied me to a telephone pole when I was a kid.
So the question then becomes is, who does Vicky turn after? Does she turn after her mother or her aunt?
Her aunt.
Or in fighting words. I'm extremely grateful. Pastor Kathy is such a good friend of mine. And so tell us a little bit about where you are and what you do and a little bit about your qualifications.
Wow. Okay. My name is Kathy Jeffries. I'm the pastor at the head of Millstream Wesleyan Church in New Brunswick. I know a lot of people have heard about it if they're in the Wesleyan Church, but they're not quite sure where it's at. So we'll just say we're in the middle of almost nowhere. I am surrounded by farmers' fields. It's a beautiful place. My qualifications, like I said, I'm a reverend, so I have a BA. I also have a master's degree in theology, but I've also trained and I have a master's degree in counseling psychology, and I am in a process of becoming a licensed therapist in the province of New Brunswick, and I run my own counseling service.
That's the program that my daughter is enrolled in right now.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Yep. Anyway, we are very grateful that you're here. And what we wanted to pick your brain about is, what are some of the things that people might be feeling right now in this stage of COVID, and what are some of the emotions that we're going through?
Well, a lot of people are struggling with anxiety. There is that fear. The fear and anxiety reside in the same area in the brain, which is the amygdala. Now, we all can be anxious. That amygdala is designed to get us to tomorrow. So we don't want to shut it off. But when circumstances change, our plans aren't going the way we wanted them to, there is crazy in our world. Our little amygdala starts going, oh, and we get very anxious about things. And we need to, for ourselves, be able to take care of ourselves so that we can just talk ourselves back, dial that amygdala down, give it a nice baseline that's an average. But you know what? All of a sudden, life changed for people. They had to stay home. There's this fear of getting sick when you go out. You notice in the grocery store, if somebody gets too close to you, or you'll watch others, they're either, they're not patient enough when somebody in front of them, and they're not keeping that 6 feet distance that we're told we need to keep. They just want to move on and do their own agenda. And then others are having this, they didn't do that. People are so, well, you know what? Sometimes we need to give grace when we're out. We need to take precautions for ourselves. What are we going to do? But those are a lot of those feelings that people are feeling, is that main anxiety. Now, being cut off, the depression can settle in too. But depression and anxiety tend to be very close to each other. A lot of people suffer with both. So the question is, how are we going to control it? What steps can we take for ourselves that will help us stay at an even keel better?
So, Pastor Kathy, what steps can we take?
Yes, Pastor Diane. And for the record, she deserved to be tied to the telephone pole.
Okay. And for the record, I edit this.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Well, we need to take care of ourselves.
But you know, that part is probably going to end up at the end as a little clip.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm staying out of this.
We need to now this could go sideways quickly, ladies. It's Diane and I, right? So we need to take care of ourselves. We need to remember to exercise, have the best diet we can, have a form of mind care. Like the physical and mental bodies, like we talk about them as if they're so separate, but they're really so integrated that we have to take care of both. Our body houses this beautiful little brain here that controls everything from our heart rate, our breathing, to our emotional responses. We need to take care. Get a good exercise. And I know when we can't go out, that's difficult. You go on YouTube and you can find walking at home videos. You can find exercise videos that you can turn on and do without having very much room in your little space. And you can get some exercise that is healthy for you. Do the best diet you can do. What's in your means, but try to be very cautious about or conscientious about what you're putting in your mouth. I will tell you, I love sugar. Sugar is it for me, right? But I also try to eat really healthy. Like I'll have sprouts or greens and different things to just keep a balanced diet. It's not that we have to deny ourselves anything. It's about moderation and balance and remembering that. We need to remember in taking care of our mind, we need to find the positive. A lot of times we run on a negative mindset and we're talking negative. Oh, you can't do that, And we find that we get low because we're tearing ourselves down. In that statement you said, we need to love ourselves. We say things to ourselves that we would not say to our worst enemy. So we need to be kind to us. We need to figure out how we're going to reframe things and give a positive statement to us. Take a few minutes for yourself to relax. How are you going to do that? If you've got kids running around the house, sometimes it's really hard to find quiet. I'll tell you a secret. When my kids were young and I needed a break, I would go sit and read my book on the dryer because that was the last place they looked for me. So find your hideaway. They're coming. You know they are. But if you got 2 more minutes to read your book or just go, oh, that's a good thing. You take it and you know that was your few minutes. You can have a project. I'm guilty of having a whole bunch of projects on the side burner that I might get to, I might not get to. During this time, I have managed to get some projects a little bit further on in a couple of projects. I've sewn some sheets for my other daughter, not the one you've met here, who's about to have a baby. I've made sheets for Bassinet. I've made her things that she could use. So I had the fabric and I had the time. So I did that. What projects have you put away that you haven't touched in a long time? Grab them out. Take time for you and go, yeah, this is our quiet time. I'm doing my projects. The other family members can find their own projects. Do you like to read? A friend of mine reads as much as I do, and she gives me her leftover books that she moves them out, she moves them on, she rehomes them. So I got them. So I've had a large stack. I always have a stack of reading material usually. So I just get lost in a book, which is great therapy. Get lost in a book. And then move that book on to somebody else you know that likes to read. So you're helping them. Stay connected. You need to stay connected to family and friends. Sometimes life was really busy and we could use that excuse. Well, now we have a little bit more time. So call your sister early in the morning and get her up, right?
Do not call your sister early in the morning, Kathy.
Call your sister. It's
Family
fun.
feud.
Actually, it's interesting that you say that though, because I mean, it's not like we're distant emotionally, but generally we don't talk a lot to each other. I mean, if we need something, we're there. We know we can call. But
Yeah.
in regular time, we're not talking to each other all the time. But we've probably talked more since this lockdown, so the last 2 months, than we did probably the last 5 years that I've been here.
Well, that's probably true. I'll call once in a while. You'll call once in a while.
Yeah.
But there's just that sense I needed to check in. Make sure you're okay. You're my baby sister. So, right?
Because I am much, much younger than her.
She's enough younger than me. How's that? But stay connected to family and friends. We can do it via Zoom, via social media. We can do it send a nice card, write a letter. If you're isolated, have the kids in the house. Write letters to Nanny and Grampy, aunts and uncles who might not even be close by and just are feeling the weight of missing family connections, even when they don't get to see each other very much. Right now, it's not as if we could just go. My husband's children are all in Ontario. So are the grandbabies. We usually get to visit them twice a year, and we've missed that. We can't go. And so there's that little bit of sadness. Write them a letter. So call them. Stay connected. Be ingenious about it. Find ways to do it. Because find something fun. I have seen on Pinterest where people are sending hugs. They draw themselves with their arms outstretched. So when it gets to their loved one, they can wrap it around them. So get creative. I know. Find ways to stay connected. Because in our time of isolation, we can slip through the cracks. A few weeks ago, my son was he was working from home. He lives alone. And I made sure I called him every few days just to make sure he was okay, because he's the social butterfly and he needs contact. Now he has gone back to work at his workplace because he knows he shouldn't be home alone all the time and working from home. But know what you need and be willing to step up if you have an employer that's saying, I'd like you to work from home, but if you don't have to, if you can't do that, make that connection. Say, hey, this is what I really need for my mental health too. Because yes, we are trying to deal with this COVID-19, but still we need to take care of our mental health, and we need to stay connected. We need to make those connections. Sometimes we do need to pick up and call a sibling, who might be alone, or a child, or a neighbor, and pick them up. As a pastor, I have been making more phone calls in these last couple of months just to make sure everybody's okay. I touch base somehow, whether it's with social media or a phone call, to say, how are you doing? I have a lovely lady in my congregation who usually beats me to it and calls me and say, so how are you doing? Which is so sweet. So thank you to her, because she's kind and she checks in on me to make sure I'm okay. So we need to continue checking in on each other. So we take good care of ourselves. We exercise, eat right.
Can I just backtrack a little bit? You had mentioned the self-care and the thinking positively about things. When you're in that trap of negative self-talk and all that, do you have any steps that people can put into practice to say, okay, this is how I'm talking to myself? What can I do to change that?
Wow, that's a good question, Diane. Thank you. Yes. If you are finding that first off, we've got to realize that's what I'm saying to myself, right? What have I been saying to myself? Question yourself. And when you find, oh, that's really negative, what would I change that to? I wouldn't say that to my best friend. Look in the mirror and reframe it. Look in the mirror and say those positive things to yourself. What you can do is you can reframe what you're saying, that positive reinforcement. I tell people to write it down on a piece of paper, put it on their mirror, and tell themselves, talk to yourself in the mirror. Kathy, you did a really good job yesterday. That was really good. You know what? You can handle this. You've got this. You've dealt with stress before. It's going to be all right. You're enough. Tell yourself what you need to hear. What would you tell your best friend? Because we are really gracious to our best friends. We wouldn't drag them down and call them names. We give them encouragement. We help them reframe. Be your best friend. Stand in front of that mirror and tell yourself what you need to hear. And if you're going, I don't know how to do that, what would you tell your best friend? You tell yourself what you would tell your best friend.
So sometimes, if I get into that really negative thought process for myself, I'll ask a best friend or my daughter or somebody that's really close to me to give me a few affirmations.
Nice.
To actually say something kind to me, or something that I'm good at, or something that I've been successful at, so that it's not just me saying it, but it's somebody else. And it helps.
It does. It helps to hear it, not just think it up here. It helps us literally to hear it. And Peggy, a few years ago, you and I were involved in a single moms camp, and you had people write on rocks characteristics. I still have one of those, and I pull it out every once in a while when I'm struggling with a low mood, right? Mm-hmm. Because those kinds of things help us to just, all right, that's just a passing moment. This is more reality. This is what somebody else saw in me. And it's a helpful step. So be kind to yourself, not just everyone else. Be kind to you.
One of the biggest things that I've noticed, and I did a lot of reading at the beginning of COVID, and I read a research paper about and it was about, hold on just a second, I get this right. Okay, hold on. one of the things that I did at the beginning of this COVID was did a lot of reading, and I read a research paper, and it highlighted two things. One was self-imposed change that I want in my life, and I am much more happy when I decide that I'm going to renovate my basement. Opposed to externally imposed change when I have a flood that makes me renovate my basement. So it's even though I get to renovate my basement, it's because of the circumstances in my life. So what this article was saying was that a lot of people are grieving the loss of normalcy, and now because it wasn't something that they decided to do but imposed on them, they were grieving. And as we move back into a normal, we have to create a routine. Can you speak into how important a routine is in our everyday lives?
A routine is that helps us know what we're going to do next. That idea that I know what I have to do. I'm getting up. Wednesday, I get up Wednesday morning, I make fudge because Friday market's coming, right? I sell fudge on the side too.
Something else we have in common.
It's not as good as her mad fudge, but it's okay.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks.
Go ahead, Peggy.
So I get up Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning, I know what I'm doing in the morning. I'm making fudge. That helps my day go along because, today's Wednesday. And if you're like a lot of other people, there is that sort of, you get up in the morning, right, I'm not going to work today, or I'm not doing this. What are we going to do? Let's make a plan. Because a person with a plan and a purpose is a happier person. So we work on that. We create plans for ourselves. Yes, sometimes our plans do get hijacked by the circumstances around us, by our families, or whatever is happening within our homes. That's okay. Because we had a plan, we have a purpose, we just get up the next day and decide this is going to be our plan and our purpose for the day. And we work on getting those routines. We notice that our children are happier when they have good, solid routines because they know what to expect. And we as adults still need those routines because we want to know what we're going to expect. We really don't like surprises. So a nice surprise once in a while is okay. But we really don't like surprises. Most of us really like to know that we know what is going to happen throughout my day and tomorrow. So we work on that. We find a plan that's going to work within the context of my home. What am I going to do? If you have kids, well, sometimes that really, that covers it because you have to take care of the kids. You have to make sure they're clothed, fed, bathed, not fighting or killing each other, whatever you need to do, right? To get them to the end of the day with a lovely bedtime story, a cuddle and a tuck into bed and good night. Mm-hmm. For adults, if you're living alone, find a routine. This is this day. I'm going to work on this project today. I'm going to read this book. Maybe this is the day I'm going to make some phone calls. Maybe I'm going to write a letter to somebody I haven't written a letter to in a long time. Make a plan because that gives us purpose. And we do. A person with a plan and a purpose is a happier person.
Pastor Kathy, some of the emotions that have been coming out lately have been some anger and things like that, especially when you go to the store, if you see somebody with a mask or without a mask, or can you give us a little insight into where that might be coming from and how to be able to handle that?
Okay. Anger is a funny emotion. We all deal with it, right? Mm-hmm. We get anxious and anger can pour out, right? And then we're going, where'd that come from? But that anxiousness that's there, because anxiousness and fear are closely related within our brain. Therefore, anger resides there too. One theory of anger emotions are anger is a secondary emotion And behind that secondary emotion are primary emotions, which are fear, hurt, or frustration. You know what? We're scared. We don't want to get sick. We don't want our loved ones to get sick. And we don't know these other people in a store. And if they get too close, of course, it's like, what are you doing? And we get angry. That's a natural response because we're there to protect ourselves, right? That fight or flight too. And then we get frustrated because people just aren't following the rules. A lot of the stores around here have these arrows and somebody just doesn't follow the arrows, right? We get angry about it. You know what? Let's give some grace. It is so hard sometimes because I have a certain way of going through my grocery store. It is a habit. I do it all the time. You know what? I'm lucky the grocery store I go to, the arrows are going all the right way. Now, sorry. But
mine are not.
No, I'm not. Oh, you know me. What if they weren't going the right way? That would throw my whole day off there, right?
Yeah.
It would really, and I'd be angry anyway, because what are they thinking? Those arrows aren't on the floor right.
Yeah.
That's not the way you need to go through your grocery store. So we need to sort of step back and laugh at ourselves when those anger emotions are starting to seep up. We don't need to respond and be cruel to people. Everybody is struggling through this. And anger is there. Some people don't care. They do have this idea, oh, well, it's not that serious. I won't get sick. And therefore, it's all about their little bubble. And then there are other people worried about the bigger bubbles in their world, right? So let's try.
Sometimes it's just, I was thinking, I was out doing stuff the other day, went to the post office, and I had my mask in my car. I get out of the car and I go into the post office, forgot all about it. I'm in there and I glance out the window and I can see somebody pulling in and they get out of the car and that's when it clued into me that I don't have my mask. Oh my goodness, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
And luckily, she was in and out before I got my stuff all out because I had a second parcel. But when I came out, she was just getting in her vehicle and I went over, I didn't go too close, still maintaining my distance. Went over and I said, I'm so glad you were quick going in and out because I forgot my mask. I'm so sorry. So sometimes people get things on their minds and they forget what they're doing.
They do. We were at the farmer's market on last Friday and my daughter came, but she forgot her mask. Some people are not just used to carrying a mask with them, right? I had an extra one with me because as a vendor, I need to carry one. I need to have one on. So I gave her mine because I had another one. But a couple of times somebody had approached a woman who come into the market and said, you need a mask on. Oh, I can't wear a mask. I'm claustrophobic. So she left, right? So there's some people who can't wear a mask. We have a friend who's been told he's not supposed to wear a mask because of his breathing issues. Mm-hmm. People with asthma have been told by their doctors, do not wear a mask. Yeah. So we need to give grace. You know what?
We don't know those people just meeting them in the grocery store.
No, I don't usually.
They don't have a big A marked on their forehead to say asthma.
I don't usually wear a mask in the grocery store.
Really?
I plan on we don't need to.
Oh, okay. You see,
like the rule
required. Most stores will say you're required to wear if you come in, but the state regulation is if you're out in public and you can't maintain the social distance, wear a mask. Okay. And let's face it, if you're in a grocery store, you might be staying away from people, but they're not staying away from you. So
that's really true. Yes, you expect them to, but they don't. So
here in Alberta, it's a personal choice. So we're not, and everywhere is different.
It is. In New Brunswick, the stores can ask you to, but that would be their choice. Mm. So most stores don't worry about it. If you're keeping your personal distance, there's plexiglass between you and the cashier. They have things marked out, and just be orderly and be kind. And you know what? I've seen people who are just used to going a certain way. It's not that they're being rude. It's just that they miss the arrows. And this is the way they've always done it, and it's harder for them, especially the elderly, to change their habits. So that aggression, that anger we feel, yeah, it's a real emotion for a lot of us. So we just kind of, how would we want somebody to treat us if we ended up going down the wrong aisle, right? If we went against the arrows in the store, right? Oh, because you know what? If I'm looking on the shelves, I'm not always looking at the floor, right? These are all new habits for all of us. Yeah, some people get upset because somebody's not wearing a mask. Well, they might have a reason, or like you said, you forgot your mask, right? Mm-hmm. So let's give grace. You know, we don't need to get upset with them. Their intent wasn't to disrupt your world. Their intent was as innocent as yours, and a lot of the time they just misread the sign on the floor, or were looking, because that's the way they always have done it. We need to be gracious. And then, you know, sometimes we feel that our personal liberties have actually been removed at times, because under a state of emergency, that's what the government does. It is there to protect you. We want to have as many people not get sick as possible, because yeah, this COVID-19 isn't serious for some people, but it is deadly for others. In loving our neighbors, we need to take those health precautions to help them. We don't want to get sick. We don't want our loved ones to get sick. And we still don't want anyone else's loved ones to get sick. So we do need to take some precautions. So when you feel that anger, go, all right. And give the person that it's sort of, really, how can you come in my personal space? Give them grace. Yeah, I know, Diane, you must have a hard time there.
I was thinking, were you reading my mind when I was at the grocery store the other day?
Diane with like 9 feet personal space, thank you.
Well, I've seen some new research coming out of the CDC that they're saying that 6 feet may not even be enough, because especially if you're in a confined area for a length of time, because the particles are coming out. Like if you're in a grocery store and you're walking, then you know, it's not as dangerous kind of thing, because will drop.
But we're not in a concert scene or a conference where people are mulling around and the air particles, if we threw some sparkle into places like a concert or convention, they would get everywhere.
Yeah.
And
like even just sitting here in a bedroom, like for a couple of hours or whatever, constantly talking, you know, there's a buildup of droplets.
Absolutely.
Right?
But that's why they're telling us to stay home. Don't go out in crowds. Keep your social distance. Keep your bubble family. Mm-hmm. And stay within that group if you can, because they are really trying to stop the spread of the virus. Yeah. Because it can be done.
I've got 2 more questions. Do you have anything, Diane?
I don't. You go ahead. I'm watching the clock, so.
Okay, yeah, and they actually are sum up questions, so they'll be yeah. So the first question, Kathy, is what do you see, or do you see a positive coming out of this, like towards the end? Is there anything from an emotional or mental health standpoint that you see as a positive?
You know what? I think families are connecting. Mm. And we haven't been able to go out and see those extended family members that we love. So that is really, we are now recognizing how important our family is. We knew it, we said it, but we didn't always carry through on it, right? Mm-hmm. So we need as we move forward and we are moving toward the end and being able to meet with family and friends more, we need to live in the moment and just enjoy the celebration of being allowed to be together. The fact that we have such amazing friends and family, we need to step into that and just know how blessed we are. Some people are going to come out feeling a little lonelier. And maybe as we move out, it's about finding a plan to make good connections with certain people. Sometimes we get to move to a new community, which was really hard to make new connections and new friends. Have a plan. Have some questions you ask people. As a counselor, I can ask people questions, and that helps me get to know them. And when I'm asking those questions, oh, that sounds interesting. They think I'm a really good listener, and that helps build friendships with them, right? So be pointed on making good friendships, making connections so that you do feel that you are connected and you can pick up that phone or connect with somebody on social media in those lonely times, right? I think the fact that, the family connections, I think that we know, we've always used it and said it, but I think I know a lot of people who are just enjoying this time at home with their kids, with the family, without this hustle and bustle of getting up, getting ready, getting out, da-da-da-da-da. So that's one of the positives I've seen.
I mean, people often say how important their family is to them, but how often do you have 11 weeks to be able, because normally, if you get 3 weeks off in the summer as holidays or whatever, you're bustle and you're hustle and you're going and you're doing and you're, all of these different things. And now we actually had that quality time that we were so longing for. And
yes.
were there some little squabbles along the way? Of course, that's part of being family, right?
Oh, those are just fun times sometimes.
I had somebody say to me one time, misery makes memories and good memories. Good memories. And I'm like, yeah, I remember that time that I was doing certain places and I'm like, I look back at those, even though they were hard and felt miserable, they are some of the best times of growth that I've ever had.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the last question I have for you is just, is there anything else that you would like to say to us or to our viewers about emotional and mental health?
If you are struggling, go get help. Yeah. There should be no stigma on this. If you have diabetes, nobody would ever talk to you about going to your doctor and talking about what you need to do. This beautiful little organ in your head is an organ, just like any other organ. Sometimes it malfunctioned. It's not running exactly the way it was designed to run, and we struggle with emotional issues. It is as physical as every other ailment our body can throw at us. So please, go get help. Call a counselor, call a hotline, do something, get some help. Because God loves you. And you know what? We do. He knows this little brain in our condition can malfunction. And it's okay. It's not a sin. It's not a sin if I have diabetes or if my pancreas malfunctions or if my heart or liver or another organ malfunctions, right? It's not a sin when our brain malfunctions. If we read through the book of Psalms, we find some very dark times of David. I love that. He is so human. He cries out, honey, they put him on Prozac. This boy we wouldn't have all these beautiful Psalms where, Lord, where are you? I'm grounded here. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So I want to encourage our viewers. I mean, you've got 3 pastors here in 3 different parts of the world. Mm-hmm. Maybe Pastor Diane, you can put our contact information under our pictures. If you're out there and you're struggling, call us.
Yes.
If we can't help, sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. But we know resources within our communities and within our provinces and within our areas that we can connect you with, or we may know somebody who is in your area. Like, I might know somebody that the Wesleyan Church is pretty big, and we have people all over the place that are just waiting there for you. So if you're struggling with depression or anxiety or suicidal thoughts or any of those kinds of things, please reach out to us, and we will try to connect you with other professionals in our area or beyond. So thank you so much, Pastor Kathy, for coming on and sharing with us today. We are truly blessed.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure to talk with both of you.
This has been absolutely amazing. And I do want you to watch on Friday, because we're going to be doing some art therapy that's going to follow along with this particular mindfulness and mental health. So be watching for Friday's art therapy. But from Slave Lake, Alberta, I am Pastor Peggy Yetman.
I'm Pastor Kathy Jeffries from the Head of Millstream in New Brunswick.
And I'm Pastor Diane from Norfolk Wesleyan. We will see you tomorrow for Tadpole Thursday. Lots of hope, yay! Until then, be safe.
Be healthy.
Be the church.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
I don't know if you've watched any of these, Kathy. Have you?
I've watched some.
You ever watched to the end?
What?
So what we did.
There's usually some bloopers at the end from time to time. You never know.
Oh, Kathy and Diane finding's a good blooper.
Just to let you know.
I'm staying out of it.